Hi everyone, so we're going to start off with something new today. We're going to go into area of composite figures. Okay, so those are these types of shapes. So if you've ever played Tetris, it is full of composite figures. It's basically like two shapes put together. So if you look at this one's like two rectangles just kind of pasted together like that. Okay, but before we go into that, we're going to do a little bit of review on area of rectangles, squares, and triangles. That's pretty much what we're going to be focusing on today. Okay, so if you look at this first one, okay, the area of a square or rectangle or parallelogram is base times height. Okay, real simple. All you need to do is multiply this number, which is your base, and your height. Okay, so it should just be 7 times 7. And that is 49. Okay, that's literally it. Okay, go ahead and pause this and do the next one. Okay, so for this next one, you should have multiplied these two numbers. So 8 times 5. 5 is your height, 8 is your base. So you should have had area equals 8 times 5, which was 40. Okay, so if you got that right, give yourself a check. All right, now we're gonna move on to triangles. Okay, so this formula is a little bit different. Okay, but we've done this before, so you should be fine. The area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Okay, so for these, you just need to identify base and height, and at the end divide by 2. Okay, so first of all, in this one right here, I have 3 numbers. I have 6, 8, and 10. One of those we are not going to use. Okay, and if you remember correctly, I hope you remember, anything across from this right angle, we just terminate. Don't even use it. Don't worry about it. Cross it out. You don't need it till next year, till 8th grade, okay? So we should just be using 8 and 6. Since 8 is at the bottom right there, that should be your base. And the height is 6. Whoops. Okay, so it should be 1/2. And I'm going to go ahead and put those two numbers in parentheses. 6 times 8, or 8 times 6. Remember, it'll give you the same thing. So you can do 1/2 of 8 times 6 is what? 48. Okay, and half of 48 is 24. Okay, if you're wondering how I got that, remember 1/2 of 48 is the same thing as saying 48 divided by 2. And if you don't know that off the top of your head, you can always do the long division. Okay, 2 goes into 4 twice, gives you 4, 0. Bring down the 8, 2 times what gives me 8? That's a 4, so my answer is 24. Okay? Same thing for this one. You're going to have 1/2 base times height. And I want you to go ahead and solve this one right here on your own. Okay? Go ahead and pause it and solve it on your own. Okay, so you should have identified the 12. Okay, remember it's at the bottom, so that's my base. Now, up here we have these 3 numbers. Okay, remember, if it's on this slanty side right here, you terminate it. Don't use it. Okay, so you should not be using it. You should be using the ones that go down the middle like this if it's one of these types of triangles. If you looked at this one right here that we did before, it was a right triangle. So you should be using only the sides that are adjacent to this right angle, okay? That's it. All right, so the numbers we should have used are 12 and 8. 8 was the height. So when I plug this in, I should get 1/2 of 12, which is my base, right? That's what I got here, times 8. Okay, 1/2 of 12 times 8, that is 96. 1/2 of 96, you can go ahead and divide that on your own, but that should be 48. Okay? So this right here, let me use this a different color. Everything here was finding area of triangles. Okay? And the top two examples, let's use a different color, not red, green. These two were the area of squares and rectangles. Okay? All right, now this is what we're gonna get into today. Okay? So this right here is what we would call a composite shape. Okay, and before I teach you how to do this, I actually want you to, I want you to try and do it on your own. Okay, so we just reviewed how to find area of rectangles. Okay, now we have this shape where it looks like, you know, some maybe 2 rectangles or more, I don't know, are just kind of slapped together. So I want you to try and figure this out. So go ahead and pause this video and see if you can figure this out on your own, okay? All right, so hopefully you solved it, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you the solution. So there are a number of ways you can do this. Okay, you can either slice it down here and you have 3, so you have 1 rectangle here, 1 here, and 1 here, right? That's one way. The other way you could kind of slice it up is down this way, which I think is the most obvious and probably the easiest, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and solve it this way, but I'm gonna highlight this one. Say this is the pink one, and then this one right here is gonna be the green one, okay? So I'm gonna start off, I'm gonna use pink. So since this is a rectangle, I need to use base times height, okay? So first of all, it doesn't have a number here, okay? It doesn't have anything. But if you look across, there's a 20, okay? That 20 here and that and this here are the same length, so that should also be 20. So for this first rectangle, okay, I'm gonna draw it out. My base should be 20, okay? Now the height, that one is pretty obvious. It's right there, okay? And right now, remember, I'm only focusing on this top one right now, okay? So that's 12. Now that I know those two things, I can solve for the area. So that's 20 times 12. That should give me 240 square feet. Okay, remember, today we're focusing on area, so your units should be squared, okay? Now, we solve the area of this one, okay? Something I like to do is I kind of label as I go. So the area of this one was 240, and I kind of put it right in the center, okay? Because at the end, I'm going to have to add this up. So now that I got that first one, I'm going to go ahead and solve for this green one. Okay, I'm going to do this over here. So this one's much longer, okay? So what I have to figure out is the base and the height. So what is my base and what is my height? When I'm solving this, I would label those pieces. So what is my base and what is my height? Just like that. Okay, now the base, remember I referred to the bottom. So if I look at this bottom part, there's a number there. That's 34. Okay? So that's going to be my base. Now, what is my height? So I already used 12 and I already used 20, right? So I'm not going to worry about the top numbers anymore, but I have this number, and this 7 right there. Okay, your height is how tall your rectangle is. So, do I even need to use that 7? Probably not. You don't need to use it. So I'm going to cross that out, okay, because it's very obvious my height is 8. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is solve it. So area equals, what did I do? Okay, so area equals 34 times 8. Okay, I don't know what that is at the top of my head, so I'm going to go ahead and calculate this on the side. So 34 times 8. 8 times 4 is 32. Carry the 3. 8 times 3 is 24. Plus 3 is 27. So that should be 272 square feet. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. 272. Okay, now the very last step is to solve. So step 1 is to find area of individual pieces / shapes, right? The first two. Then step 2 would be to just add everything together. So add. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 240. So this is the total area is going to be equal to the 240 that I got from this first one, right? And then plus the green one that I solved for, which is the bottom rectangle. So that's 272. Okay, when I add those up, I should get 215. So my total area should be 512 square feet as my total area. Okay, that's it. This is all stuff, again, like you've done this before, it just looks a little bit different. Okay, most important thing is step 1, find the area of the individual pieces. So we broke this up into 2 rectangles, so we found the area of those 2 rectangles. Okay, the first 2 areas were 240 for the top one and 272 for the bottom rectangle. Okay, last step is just adding everything, okay, to find the total area. That's pretty much it. Okay, now I'm just going to do the quick definition. So the definition of a composite figure is 2 or more shapes put together or combined. Okay? So an example of this, if you look at like the front of a house, right? That's an example of a composite shape. You have a triangle there plus a rectangle. That's a composite shape. So I would solve that by finding the area of that triangle and then adding it to the area of the rectangle, and that's it. Okay? Just a quick review, and by the way, the notes on this video are going to be also on Google Classroom, so check out for that. The area of rectangle, parallelograms, and squares are all the same. Area equals base times height. Okay, and the triangle is 1/2 base times height, and just to review, for a circle is pi r squared. Now today we're not really going to do circle stuff, but later on we will. So I just wanted to add that in there. Okay, so again, this is the same thing. 11 and 4. Okay, so we have those 2 examples. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to create 2 sections. So I'm going to call this figure 1, and then this is 2. So I'm going to call this 1, and this is 2, okay? So this is a way that I like to use to organize my work. Okay, so figure 1, if I'm looking at it, I know that I need to identify my base and the height. So my base here, right, is 11. If I'm looking at this right here. because this and this top part right here are exactly the same. So this base is 11 and the height is this 4 right here. Okay? Now, I'm just going to go ahead and solve for that. 11 times 4, that's 44 centimeters squared. Okay, now I'm actually going to change up the color. So now I'm focusing on this bottom square right there. Okay? And by the way, I know it's a square because that's a 5 and that's a 5. So that means everything here is going to be 5. Okay? So, my base is 5. My height is 5. I multiply it together. 5 times 5. That gives me 25 centimeters squared. Okay? And now all I'm going to do is add. Okay? So I'm going to do 44 plus 25 to find my total area. Okay, and that's going to give me 69 centimeters squared. Okay, that's pretty much it. That is another example of 2 rectangles as a composite shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to what it would look like to see a triangle and a rectangle. Okay, so we have, let's do this one right here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and look at this and figure out where am I going to slice this or cut it up so that I can solve for the area. Am I going to do this? Does that make sense? Nope, probably not. That looks complicated. What about this right here? That looks kind of cool. Nope, that's probably not right. Okay, I'll just skip ahead. Look at that. Oh, whoa, look at that. That's a rectangle and a triangle. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do. Anytime you see this kind of little house type of shape, even if it's sideways, that is how I would slice it so that I could solve for the area in the most easiest way with the least amount of steps. Okay? So we have a triangle and a rectangle. Okay? So let's say I call this figure 1 and this is figure 2. Okay? Figure 1 is going to be here. I'm going to solve for the area of that. Figure 2 is going to be here. Again, I'm going to start using colors so you can see. I'm going to do the rectangle first because I like rectangles. Those are easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. And I'm going to solve for that. So first off, I have to identify the base. So if I'm just looking at that, it says that there's a 13 right there. Okay. That 13, yep, that's the base, okay? Now, I'm going to look at how tall this is. So, look at that. It gives me a number already. Easy stuff. That's an 8. So, when I solve for area, I should get 13 times 8, okay? I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm going to go ahead and do it real quick. 104, so area of that one is 104 inches squared, okay? So that looks a little bit blurry, but this right here is a 13 and this is an 8, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and erase this part quickly. All right, now here's the part where it gets a little difficult. Okay, so we have this triangle. There's nothing really labeled there, right? It looks kind of weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this side. So this side right here is actually the same length as this side because they're parallel, okay? And if you turn this kind of sideways, right, to make it look like a house with the rectangle in the bottom, this part right here would actually be the base. And that is an 8. Okay, I really want you to pay attention to that. So this 8 and this 8 right here are the same. Okay, because it's still part of that rectangle. So that base is going to be 8. And that height, that's where that gets tricky. Okay, the height, remember when we looked back up here, so let's go back. That height was kind of in the middle, right? But if you look at this, there's not really anything labeled there. The only thing I see is this 13, this 8, and then this 19 over here. Okay, I want you to think about what this 19 is telling us. Okay, so I'm going to use this highlighter function. So if you look at how wide this entire figure is, right? From one side all the way to the little corner, like the little corner tip of the triangle. Okay, that's what they're saying is 19. Okay, but part of that 19 is this 13, right? This 13, that's part of the rectangle. The thing is, there's a missing piece right here. You don't know what that is. That's what the height of the triangle is, right? But you don't know what that is yet. They don't tell you, okay? But you do have to find those numbers, that number using this number and that number. Okay, so if that total length is 19 and this little piece right here is 13, then how would you figure this out? I want you to think about that. Okay, so if you already know, go ahead and pause it and solve it. Okay, but right now I'm gonna go ahead and continue. So what you have to do in those cases is actually subtract. So you would do 19 minus 13. Okay, this is to find the height of the triangle. Okay, so this 19 minus 13, that is going to be 6. Okay, so now I have to use my formula for triangle. Remember, I can't just multiply them now because this is now a triangle. So you have to do 1/2 of 8 times 6. 1/2 of 8 times 6 is 24. Okay, because that gives you 1/2 of 48. Yeah. 48, which gives me 24 inches squared. Okay, am I done? Nope, we are not done yet because we still have to add those two areas up. So what I'm going to do finally is figure out my total area. That is going to be 104 plus 24, which should give me 128 inches squared as my area. Okay? All right. So remember, if you're solving for area of a triangle, like here, okay, you need to use a different formula. You need to use the area formula for a triangle, okay? The rectangle ones are easy. You're just multiplying base times height, which is why I didn't really show the equation here. Okay, you only really have to be more careful when you're looking at a triangle, because I notice a lot of people sometimes forget to divide by 2, and that's where they get that mixed up. Okay, so this next one I want you to go ahead and do on your own. Go ahead and pause this video, and when you feel like you're finished, or if you're confused and you want to see the solution, go ahead and unpause it. Okay, so again, I'm going to slice it down this way. I'm going to go ahead and figure everything out first. So the base of, and I could even label, instead of, if you think it's confusing to say 1 and 2, you can just say rectangle. And then the other thing you're solving for is triangle. Okay, so The base and the height of this rectangle, that's a 7. And that's a 7. Okay? So I'm going to use, and I'm going to write the formula down. So base times height, 7 times 7, 49. They give me the unit, so that's meters squared. Okay, now I'm going to use a different color for the triangle. Actually, I'm going to stick to green. So this triangle here, okay, my base is going to be this part, okay, which is the same as this side, okay, because that base of the triangle is part of that rectangle. So that is a 7. Okay, that's a 7 because this is a 7. Okay, so my base is 7. Now the height is where it gets a little more confusing and involved. So the height here is where we have to take a look at this and this. Okay, in order to find this little missing piece, okay, which is going to be this. Okay, so if I know that the total from here to here is 11, and this little piece is 7, well, if I subtract those, I get 4, which is going to be my height. Okay, so now I'm going to use my formula. 7 times 4, 1/2 of 7 times 4, because 1/2 base times height. Okay, and that's going to be 1/2 of 28, which is 14. Okay, remember that's just 28 divided by 2, and that's meters squared. Now the last step is finding the area, the total area. Okay, so that's just going to be 49 plus 14, which is going to be 63 meters squared. Okay, so it only seems a little bit confusing at first, but remember that this is really just about taking it step by step, okay? I always start off with the rectangle, and then I solve for the triangle, okay? Start off with the easy one first, okay? Make your life a little bit easier. All right, remember, if you have questions, contact us through Google Classroom or on the class Instagram page if you have any questions. Okay, hope this was helpful.